Good evening and welcome to our session today. This session is called Multilingualities, Literature Across Languages. I was telling the panelists here earlier that this session is something of a jugalbandi. So those of you who know about Indian music will know what a jugalbandi is, where people who play different instruments or who play different styles of music come together and they jam on stage and they create something magical. So joining us today are three writers from three entirely different backgrounds. And the common thing is they have in some form transcended the boundaries of language. And I use the word language actually in a very loose way, almost at a meta level. And as a translator, just being with these writers on stage is incredibly exciting to me. So we have Shumona Sinha, whose primary language now is French, right? But she was born in Bengal. She was born, you spoke, your first language was Bangla. And of course, you learned English. You wrote poetry in Bangla, correct?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and but then at the age of 22, almost as what she calls an act of post-colonial rebellion, she learned French and then moved to France, and now writes exclusively in French for over 25 years. When I was reading about her and when I was reading her work, it sounded like what she had broken was not just the barrier of language, because India had won its independence about 75 years ago, but there was another kind of freedom that you were acquiring by rejecting English and going to French or going to France. Maybe as a woman, there was this barrier of freedom that you were reinventing for yourself by moving from an English-speaking India to France.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
That's something I would love if you could touch on during the conversation. Ibrahim Waheed Ogaru is, he writes in Divehi and in English, as far as I know, but he says he writes in other languages too, and I'd love to hear about all the languages he speaks and all the books he has written. But he wears many hats. He was and I think of them as various languages. He worked for the government service. You're into activism. You're a famous television personality, much beloved in the Maldives. And you're a musician, you've written books. So it's almost like you negotiate these very different kinds of languages. So there's like an artistic language that you work across the boundaries of. So I'm very eager to hear more about that during the conversation today. Jeyamohan writes primarily in Tamil, and I've had the pleasure and honor of translating him. But his mother tongue was Malayalam. He grew up in a Malayalam-speaking home. And now he's translated into English, a language that's neither Tamil nor Malayalam, not an Indian Bhasha language. And he writes in Tamil and Malayalam, and sometimes uses a dialect that has features of both Tamil and Malayalam. But the most interesting thing I think about Jeyamohan is not that he has transcended the barriers of language at a spatial level, but also at a temporal level. His most recent major work is called Venmurasu, which is a 26-part reimagination, a reinterpretation, a re-evaluation of the Mahabharata for modern times. It retells the entire story. The original Mahabharata, as we have received it, was written in Sanskrit and compiled over various stages in history, and it's traditionally attributed to one Vyasa, the name means a compiler or an editor. And Jeyamohan is someone similar. He has compiled and edited not just the stories in the Mahabharata, but also 2,000 years of world history, Indian history, and brought all those values back into his massive work. So there's a boundary of values and time that I think he has transcended. So when I say multilingualities, it's not just the barriers of language, but also that of freedom, art, and values I think we can touch upon during our conversation today. So maybe to start with, if each of you can go around and tell us a little bit about your relationships with the languages that you're associated with the language that you were born in and the language that you now write in. And English, which is such a quirky filler language that we are now having this conversation in. And an allied question would be the notion of the mother tongue. And I've had interesting conversations with each of you about the idea of the mother tongue. You told me something very interesting about not just the mother tongue, but a father tongue, a lover's tongue, and so on. So I'd love to know what you think about your relationship with your mother. Right? And you told me that your mother speaks 2 languages that you had no idea how she picked up. So what does the word mother tongue mean to you? And Jeyamohan, sir, you've said so much about your mother, who was a scholar who spoke 3 languages and read in 3 languages and from whom you imbibed literature. So if you can tell us about your relationships with various languages and your notion of a mother tongue, that will be great. Maybe we can start with Shumona.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for this wonderful introduction of our work, of my work at least. When we talk about mother tongue, it's very, kind of Oedipus complex is still there, complex though deep. It's like you are not really, disconnect the bond you have with your mother, like biological bond. So I prefer to say, did I say hello to all of you? I don't know. Hello. We jumped in because she has developed it so very well, right? We're just, so plunge into that discussion. Hello to all of you. Thanks for being here in spite of the rain. So I prefer to say that's not only mother tongue, but I prefer to say native language. As I write in French, and I developed the whole conception in my last book, which is a non-fiction book about this story, why and how I write in French, how it works out. So in French, you have a very interesting expression, I found it, langue natale, native language. It sounds less musical to my ears, pardon my English, langue natale. And also, in that sense, I have developed the idea of langue vitale. That is vital language, like vital organ. Why? Because native language, you can have father tongue, you have friend's tongue, you have lover's tongue, and language is very politics. When you are in India, when you have 22 languages, and you have one particular language which is imposed all over the India, call it how by its name is Hindi. And when I was growing up, in Calcutta, I do remember we had a television, Doordarshan, and there was kind of quite cultural, linguistical, ideological battle whether how many programs there will be still on the television. There is just one channel. How many programs there will be still on local languages in Bengali, and how many programs we are imposed in Hindi. That was the first battle that we had to, when we are from Bengal, maybe when we are from Maharashtra, when you're from Tamil Nadu, when you're from Assam, Himachal Pradesh, keep all these languages alive. So why and how I am concerned to this thing? Because my first battle was not to give up writing in Bengali, not to give up writing in Bengali and not to have this inferiority complex when it comes to Hindi. First of all. Second of all, it's about English also, because I don't think we should call or consider English as a colonial language. I don't think that we should consider English as a foreign language, because when I go abroad to present my books, we don't call it English as a foreign language for Indian literature, for Indian writers. We call it Indian English. There is a niche called Indian English, like English from Australia, English from UK, English from United States. So we have Indian English. So you cannot go back to the history. You cannot go back to 2,000, 4,000 years back in Vedic Yug, and you cannot just suppress all the languages and their culture and the literature produced in those languages. So even though it's weird that I'm defending English because I have to defend French too, but before that I'm defending English in a sense because we have incorporated English in our livelihood, in our literary creation. So that's one thing. But when it comes to me, born and brought up in Calcutta, learning languages, following my classes in schools and high schools and university. Not writing into English was I consider that is my first post-colonial, very mini, tiny, personal post-colonial revolt. Because whenever you speak about Indian literature, you know, mostly 99% of the cases, people means in literary circle abroad, they'll talk about Indian literature written in English. Right. Then comes all the regional languages, vernacular languages, and to writing in French is like, let's put it less political but more poetical way, because French poet Rimbaud said that your real life is absent, so we make a better version of it, is real life is elsewhere. So I think my elsewhere was in the French language. And of course, you can see the panel today, and she so graciously let me speak first, but you know how it works in professional life, how it works everywhere, not only in India, everywhere in the world. You have to make your mark, you have to keep on thriving. So I think if I kept on writing in Bengali, as I did when I was very young, I started writing when I was 7, 8 years old. I kept on writing in Bengali a little bit till my 25, 26 years old. But I frankly think, honestly think, if I kept on writing in Bengali, I wouldn't be not only facing social censorship, moral censorship of the Indian patriarchal society, but also I would have been incorporated inside me, all those barriers, all those censorship imposed or incarnated into me. So in that sense, of course, writing in French, I don't care at all. I completely forget who am I, where am I coming from. I just only think of where I want to go. And there is one French journalist, scholar, research guide recently said a very interesting thing. I find it very interesting. He said, you know, everything said and done, you write novels in French, you have your recognition in France and elsewhere, but I think you have arrived in France, but you have never left India. I find it very interesting that I have never left India. I have arrived in France. So I think in that sense, multiple identities that we are talking about these days, that I'm not only Bengali, I'm also Indian, I'm not only Parisian, I'm also French, I'm from the mother earth, I'm European. So I do not believe any particular identity, social, religious, communal identity. India is a very composite country, not only individually, collectively is a composite country. Each single person of us, we even don't know how many years of rivers of cultural flows are going on inside us, because you are a neuroscientist, you were a neuroscientist. The thing is that when it comes to literature and linguistical study, you cannot really put us into a laboratory. You cannot judge a writer like a test tube babies. We are not babies, of course. We're not test tube babies. So we really cannot judge what percentage of the Indianness or the foreignness. So nothing is pure. So I really cherish that impurity inside me. I really cherish that how long I'll be able to stay impure. I'll be happy, I think.
Thank you so much. Impurity as a virtue is something to think about. Mr. Waheed, could you want?
Oh yes. Assalamu alaikum, namaskar, Khamagani. Now, you said that my mom spoke 2 foreign languages for which she had no explanation. And she's absolutely right. She spoke our native tongue, Divehi, which is the national language of the Maldives. We call our country Divehi Raj, which means the kingdom of the island dwellers. Now, we, I believe, are the result of the migration from Mohenjo-daro on one side, the Greater Bengal from the other side. So our language is directly Sanskrit-driven. Probably one reason why it was so easy for her to speak the language, one of the languages of Sri Lanka, which was Sinhala, and then Urdu. So I kind of and grew up trilingual, as it were. I'm not really sure what my mother tongue is. And then, of course, English came quite naturally. As a teenager, I went to a country called Lebanon. I got my first degree at a university called the American University of Beirut. حدا هون من لبنان? No. Okay. So unlike the rest of the Maldivian students who went over there, I chose not to live on the university campus, but actually rented an apartment outside. And thank God I did that, because I picked up the Lebanese Arabic, and the second language there was Français, madame. So I picked that up as well, and thank God I did that. Now, for those of you who are interested in touching other foreign languages, I'll give you a suggestion. Your first foreign language is going to be damn hard, excuse my French again. But if you manage to pick up both English and French, then, as I discovered the easy way, Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian, it becomes so easy. If you speak Lebanese Arabic and then try and get what is called classical Arabic, Aramaic, which is still living in Lebanon, the language of Jesus, it becomes so easy. And if you pick up Lebanese Arabic and Aramaic, Hebrew is next door, and that's easy. You just kind of acquire it. You don't have to learn it. It's like Urdu and Hindi. It's so easy, so easy. And this is how I've managed to build about 12 foreign languages. Now, when it comes to writing in languages, that's an entirely different kettle of fish. I'll give you one example, and this is something I've kept really well hidden from the time I landed here this time in Jaipur. This is my 7th visit, by the way, in Jaipur. First time at JLF. And that's why I kind of, do the greetings and so on. But I've been keeping this fact well hidden. And the fact is, I have to do this right now. When you're transiting from one language to the other, automatic translators don't work, first of all. No thanks to Google. At the same time, jumping that gap, especially in idioms, it just doesn't work. I'll give you one example. That's what I mean. I'll let this cat out of the bag. There you go. You meet someone, and you say, my God, you've placed 4 moons in my sky. You know where that comes from. Right? That cat is out of the bag. Yes. Ek raaz tha, just like that. So you have these 4 moons in your sky. Now, does that make sense to somebody who speaks just English? It just doesn't. So this is the kind of trouble I run into, especially when I translate. And when I kind of jump from one language to the other, I have to be very careful with the idiomatic expressions. But see, the idea is a language doesn't come in a package by itself. There's so much excess baggage. It's really not excess. So much baggage in there, in the way of tradition, in the way of culture, in the way of history, even in the way of world vision. Every language carries with it even its own little world vision. And these are things that you have to internalize. And people say that when you speak multiple languages, this becomes too much for one soul to hold. I don't agree with that. There are no limitations. There are no limitations. You just keep building, and you just keep building. And God, in all His wisdom, has given us so much capacity that we don't even know. Right? So let's carry on with the Jugalbandi on that one.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Thank you.
Really fantastic what you said.
Thank you.
Great. Jay, could you?
Namaskar. Vanakkam. I want to say a small anecdote. Few years back, I met a Sri Lankan Tamil person, and we are chatting about life and politics and everything. And I asked him, what is his profession? He said, well, sir, professionally, I am a smuggler. Oh, really? No, we are doing this business, this sea business for more than 7 generations. And after the independence of Sri Lanka, they declared it as a smuggling business. So it changed, its name changed. So this is the situation about languages in India. See, we divided India into language-based states on 1956, and it's a very artificial division. In Tamil Nadu, nearly 30% of people living in Tamil Nadu, Tamil land, belongs other languages as their mother tongue. Urdu, Telugu, Kannada, Saurashtra, and a lot of languages. Major languages, major second languages in Tamil Nadu is Telugu. So in Telugu state, I mean in Andhra, a lot of Tamils are living there. Their natural place there is there. They are living for more than 500, 600 years in Tirupati, in Nellore, but they are Tamil people. So the division of languages in India it's an artificial thing. There are a lot of border areas in Tamil in India. So I live in a place where Tamil and Malayalam both are mother tongues for more than 1,000 years. Malayalam has only history of 300 years. It emerged in I think 1730 or 40. Before that, it was called Kodun Tamil, an ancient Tamil. Various levels of Tamils are there. So why should we say that one person must have one mother tongue? Why not 2 or 3? My mother tongue is Tamil and Malayalam. See, my land is Chera land for more than 2,000 years. And the language of Chera land is Tamil. And my land is Kerala for more than 100 years. Then my language is Malayalam. And now I am living in Tamil Nadu. So I have both languages as mother tongue. And I can say that Tamil is my mother language and Malayalam is my wife's language. So as far as me concerned, wife's language is better than mother's
you're
language.
already changing not only mother tongue, also lover's tongue, your wife's tongue, your daughter's children's tongue. So there's so many tongues, so many languages, right?
And I'm writing in Tamil mainly because I choose to write in Tamil. Because Tamil has many layers, like Sanskrit. It's a classical language. And I know, I am very popular in Malayalam than in Tamil. I am writing very little in Malayalam. Only 1% of my writing is appeared in Malayalam. But I am very popular and very well established writer in Malayalam than in Tamil. But I choose to write in Tamil because Tamil is a classical language. Writing in a classical language in a modern time is a great boon. It's a great blessing. I have a very big collection of technical terms and root words in Tamil. And Tamil has 3 or 4 classical periods, 3 or 4 layers in it, like Sanskrit. You can compare only Sanskrit with Sanskrit. And I don't know about Pali or Prakrit. But we can compare Tamil only with Sanskrit, with these layers. So I love to write in Tamil. And you know that I created my fictional languages in these classical base. So I wrote in various styles. I can create all kinds of styles in Tamil. So that's why I choose to write in Tamil. So it's not an automatic selection, or it is not an inheritance. I love to write in Tamil because Tamil is the language of my mind and my dreams. And while I'm starting to write in Tamil, once I wrote some fiction in English 30 years back. One of my gurus, Arthur Oyama, said, if you are going to write in Tamil, you have to write in Tamil and Malayalam only, not in English. English is entirely different language. It has entirely different section, entirely different diction. If you are writing in English and Tamil, you will lose the musicality of Tamil, the inner music of Tamil, the rhythm of Tamil. That's more important. Great writers always live in a language, in a single language. So you choose one language. So I choose Tamil.
You know, if I can add
Sorry,
to that,
yeah, sure.
about in India and its languages, I had this experience just to share with you. Way back in 1991, I landed in Trivandrum, Thiruvananthapuram for you. And I hired myself an Enfield 350 Bullet. It's one of my sicknesses, motorbikes. So it took me 30 minutes to hire that bike. In those days, you needed an all-states permit. 7 different visits on 7 different days to the police commissioner's office to finally get an all-states permit. But then I traveled all the understand a word of Tamil, at least not at that time, but I still did understand Urdu and Hindi. So as I kept going north, the degree of comprehensibility of the language I was hearing on the roads out there kept increasing, until I kind of reached this area, including getting lost in the desert in Rajasthan, that at that point in time I could talk to everyone, and with no language barrier at all. And this is what I mean. There is no such thing as a language barrier. I think it probably happens like when you cross over, say, for example, from, I didn't go that far. I mean, if you can go into, Kashmir and then perhaps into Afghanistan, and then from there into Iran, and then from there into, what is today the Turkish Kurdish territory, and then so on, I don't think you'll ever run into a language barrier. I just thought I should put it out there.
Right.
Yeah, I just wanted to, if I may, what both of you said, I wanted to say something, what you said and then what you said. See, I think I wanted to say just 2 things. What do you say that we have to leave the language to write in that language? Totally agreeing, but in that sense, when you live in a country like me, 25 years, and when in my dreams, people from Calcutta, rickshaw puller from Calcutta, or my mother, or my father, or my neighbors, who don't speak a single word in French, but in my dreams they used to come, and in the muffled language of dream, because in dream you don't really hear the language, there is no sound, but you have the impression that somebody's talking to you.
There is a popular saying that style is in your ears.
Muffled language of the dream. People of Bengal, my mother including, used to talk in French. I started writing my travelogue in Bengali, which is my native language, not mother tongue, father's tongue, friend's tongue, lover's tongue. Consciously thinking in French and translating from French to Bengali, trying to translate from French to Bengali, and it wasn't working at all. So I stopped the thing and I thought, okay, fine, it's a sweet kind of schizophrenia. Let's take, get the most out of it, and started writing in French. That was my first stage. But secondly, when you live in that country, you cannot really translate the taste of the wine, red wine, white wine, different, all sort of red wines, all sort of white wines, all sort of cheese, all sort of breads, all sort of meats, all sort of air you breathe, the streets you are walking in, friends you are meeting, their odor, their face, their body lines. You cannot possibly translate all those multiple, minuscule moments you are living in a different language that you are not living every day. So when you breathe the language, I agree with you, but on the other way, I'm agreeing with you. I'm coming to your point, but I'm making a circle and circle. So yes, of course, I write in French because I breathe the language. It's like oxygen moving around, lungs. That's why I write in French. And just one thing you said is fantastic. Again, I agree with you, but starting by disagreeing with you, because you can move, you can travel physically, you can, not all the people, some people, some people can move across the frontiers, go to Kashmir, to Kanyakumari, and then Afghanistan and Iran, Middle East, till Europe. They can go till states, they can go. But not all the people can go, first thing. Secondly, I think that's a physical movement you are talking about, a geographical. Language or languages, they have their own abstract imaginary geography in our head. That's what you said in the beginning, fantastically, that one portion of the brain, like the muscle, you go to the gym and you do muscling up. When you speak so many languages, there's one part of your brain get muscled up, So we are all like Rafael Nadal. You know Rafael, talking about Rafael Nadal, his one arm is bigger than the other. We're all like Nadals of languages, We have one particular brain, part of the muscle of the brain is muscled up.
But it's particularly interesting how the language gets hold of you. Sometimes you are born into a language, and sometimes it's like having a mother, and sometimes it's having a mother come and pick you up from the street, right? So when Jeyamohan said he chooses to write in Tamil despite it being a mother language, but you choosing to embrace French.
You can listen to us.
Yeah. Can you hear anything?
I'm scared that you can't hear it. That's why I'm screaming almost, but you can hear me.
I'll try my best to go over that. So I think there's another element in our Jugalbandi today.
Exactly.
Okay. Maybe we have time for one more question to make around. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. So all three of the writers who are sitting with us today are they're poets at some level, and they're all storytellers. There's an element of a tale in each of the works of yours that I've read. And I say this because I think a story is something particularly powerful. It has the ability to transcend languages. So Jeyamohan has written a story called Periyamma's Words, and it's a story that I've translated. It's an interesting story because it's about an old woman. She is from a village, and she knows nothing but her own village. But one day, her great-granddaughter who's living in the United States wants her to come over. So this old lady who's in her 80s has to learn some English. So they hire a young man in the same village to teach her English. And, it first goes well because she's just learning the basic vocabulary. But when it comes to hard things like what is the word for faithful, what's the word for grateful or grace, they realize that they cannot get the meaning across. And then this man resorts to telling her stories. So he tells her stories from the Bible and then from Homer. And then the woman thinks about it and she responds with stories of her own from the Puranas, from the epics. And then eventually they come to some understanding of meaning, right? And eventually what they arrive at is not the Queen's English, but it's an English that's halfway between where the woman starts from, like you said, but
Absolutely.
She doesn't actually end up. You said it's called exophony, so something like that. And in each of your works, there is a strong element of I just told Jeyamohan's story. In Ahlam, the novel by Waheed that I read, there's a spirit that comes from the beyond and tells stories that helps the protagonist to overcome his deficiencies. And I found that it drops a story every day, and it's the story, the power of the story that creates the meaning. And in Down with the Poor, there's all these tall tales that the refugees come up with, and each one taller than the other, And they try so many things. They cajole the interpreter, and, they coax them, they appeal to their guilt and guilt trip them, and they do all these things with the stories that they tell them. So the question I have here now is, what do you think the power of the story is in transcending linguistic boundary? Why is the story so powerful? Maybe we can start from Sir now. Why is the story so powerful in transcending linguistic boundaries?
Well, there is a popular quotation that a work which is completely translatable is not a good work. A work that cannot be translated is also not a good work. There's a balance between There's a balance. So I think, and I hope that the essence of any great literature can be translated into any human language. That's the possibility of human brain. I can imagine a story through a very poor translation. So almost all translations, Russian translations in Tamil are very poor quality in language, and they are translated in a mechanical way. But we read the classics through their poor translation. So a great work can be translated in any way. It can be communicated with a good reader. And so the process of translation is going on for thousands of years throughout in India. The entire Indian culture is created through translation. And I think majority of great Tibetan saints are called the translator. Marpa, the translator. Milarepa, the translator. Translators are the great saints in Tibet. Not only in Tibet, throughout India, translators are considered great scholars and great saints. So it is not translating a text into another text. It is translating a wisdom into another wisdom. So thank you. So the major poet of Malayalam is Tunjat Edutachan. He translated Krishna Sarma's Adhyatma Ramayana into Malayalam. And he created a new language called Malayalam through this translation. So I think translation is a original literary activity. I think it's creating new literature out of literature. That's called translation. Thank you.
So the question was, why is a story so powerful?
Why is the story so powerful
Well,
in transcending language?
I kind of think of it at a simplistic level, where when you have realities that are sometimes even unpalatable, or realities that people are unwilling to receive in real form, you can always wrap them up in a story. Anything from something you tell your children about a rabbit that misbehaved, not about a child that misbehaved. If you can pull that stunt off, that's one way of actually utilizing the power of a story. Because you can always remove yourself from the reality, but still hand reality to someone. That's one way I see it. Another way I see it is a story, whether it is in written form or even if it's in the oral tradition, the moment you put it in these two forms, or even if there's a third form, which could be visual, all the entire gamut of being visual, that stays there for a long time for others to enjoy or partake of. That's another side of it. Another side of it is also a story in any form can be always so condensed, and this is where the short story becomes so powerful, where you can keep the essentials and ignore the rest. Like we are right now doing that by ignoring the noise of the rain and the water that seems to be gently flowing in there, right? So unless we kind of look at it, we just ignore it and concentrate on what's going on in here. And even that is something, that kind of power is something a story gives you. Oh, there you go.
I'll say something. I'm sorry if whatever I'm going to say, I'm not trying to be provocative or trying to, make a cultural shock all of a sudden. But let me put it that way. I just thought about that picture right now. See, when you see a painting, if you see the nude painting of a nude, and think about a nude person, you don't have the same appreciation, right? In real life, reality, in our society, normal society, we cannot expect people, men or women, anybody, even a kid after a point of time, you cannot expect us to go around naked. For me, reality is the naked version of the things, facts. And fiction is needed, that needed dresses, all sort of dresses, not trying to make it beautiful, not trying to make it to be, prettier, is just the necessary. It's the necessary amount of, you hide it so that your imagination understands, appreciates better the reality, the naked body. You know what I mean? So I think for in that sense, fiction is that dresses that you need to cover up the reality to reveal it better.
And how does it help in transcending language, barriers of language?
She is unstoppable. I have just given you such a beautiful image, and people are clapping. Some of them are clapping. You're still coming. No, I'm just joking. No. Sorry. See, there's. Then I'll talk about another great poet and novelist, French novelist, Louis Aragon. Louis Aragon said, le homo, c'est-à-dire la novel, c'est le mentir vrai. Mentir vrai. Mentir, c'est lying, but vrai is truth. Novel is lying truthfully. See? Novel fiction is lying truthfully. You can carry on, scratch your head off with this just one expression of Louis Aragon, fantastic poet. What is fiction? So, mentir vrai, you need that layers of storytelling, imaginary, metaphors, images, working with the language, not to make it just beautiful, but somehow you are just making it, on the first term, maybe inaccessible, not a page turner, not you took a book to the seaside and the beachside and just between two, jumping down in the sea, you just read something, who is getting married to whom. Not that kind of story you're talking about here, right? So fiction, real serious fiction, is, I think, when a reader really works as much as the right author did to write the book, he's almost making the same amount of traveling through the language, working the language while reading it, then really the meeting point between the author, between the book and the reader, there's a meeting point, and that's really the pleasure that somehow we have done kind of traveling through the language, not together, not parallelly, but with a chronological difference, but somehow you create so many different readings. En français, on dit autant de lectures. Il y a autant de livres que les lecteurs. C'est-à-dire, sorry, I cannot think in French and translating myself into English right on the spot. That's why I'm English getting so weird. I'm trying to say that there's as many readers as books. You take one book, you take 100 Years of Solitude of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and you have hundreds and thousands of 100 Years of Solitude across the world. So this is maybe the thing we are all trying to achieve.
So that's a multiplication of selves, multiplication of personalities almost. So that brings me to the last question, and maybe if you can all spend maybe 2 minutes, since we are all running a little short on time. In one sense, like I said at the beginning, you inhabit a space between languages, but also a space between, you're negotiating your freedom, you're negotiating various modes of expression, art, and so on, and negotiating differences in values across time and space. Where is yourself in all this? What do you consider yourself? And, language was tied up to our identity not even 100 years ago. There was all this ethno-nationalism that was rampant. And now I feel we are living in a time that's much more fluid and flexible. So where's yourself in all this? We'll start from Jeyamohan.
So, see, Suchitra, recently, for the past 25 years, a predominant idea is invading into the thoughts of writers throughout the world that language is the source of knowledge and language is the basement of a personality and all that. The idea of structuralist and post-structuralist linguistic people like Derrida and all that. I consider these ideas are some kind of nonsense. And no creative writer can accept this kind of scholarly rubbish. Because a writer's mind is made up of images. I am meditating with images, not with words. My personality is on my inner images. I mean images, you can call it Gestalt, a German word, or you can call it archetype. Any word, but images. Meaningful visuals or meaningful poetic suggestions of mind. That's the source of personality. So I got it from my culture and my family and my life and from the streets. From the living, every day-to-day living, I am getting images. So that's the source of my personality. So I am constructing a personality throughout that images. Then I am constructing it. Actually, I am translating that images into language. So I can choose any language. The primary source of personality is images. What lingers in your mind? That's the question.
Great answer. So that means that language is no barrier in expressing those images. It's a great answer.
You know, about self and language, the way I do it, and at a very personal level, is I choose not to identify myself with any particular language. That's probably, and I'll tell you one, a living example, something that happened to me this afternoon over lunch. Somebody actually made me cry with a bit of poetry, but not in my mother tongue, in her mother tongue, and she's sitting right there. She did it in her language, and I couldn't stop myself. That's how I see myself in language. Language can be even such fun. As I was sitting here, I just couldn't resist this. I'll do one in French and one in some other language. It goes like this. There's this beautiful song, for example. It's an old one, La Vie en Rose, you know that one. But these days, what is happening in the world today is people are not living La Vie en Rose, but La Vie en Rosé. Rosé. The difference is one is of course the rose, the other one is rosé, like as in wine. Something you said was, you were doing something about teriyamma something, right? I felt like asking, Are, teriyamma? Did you get that? Why not a bit of humor? So that's where we are. We try and understand each other. At the same time, simply be thankful, grateful, and be simply honored with this blessing that we have called language. This is all there is to it. Seriously, that's how I see it. It's such a blessing that we have. Language, it's there. It's our blessing. It's from up there. Thank you.
Mona, we have a minute now.
Well, of course, I don't agree with you on that Derrida thing, and you did it purposefully. I am guessing we're having another session off the record right now. I'll deal with him. Don't worry. No, of course not, but we'll have a chat. No, of course I don't agree with you on the Derrida thing, but I understand also, because there is also kind of nonsense in a sense that just formalities, kind of literary work on formal level, just for the form, and forgetting the soul of the whole thing, so forgetting the purpose of the thing, just to show off something very formal way. I understand that. But there are also very good, fantastic nouvelle vague roman in the 60s, 70s, exercices of style, making so many formal experimentations also are done and still going on. So, yeah. I think I have answered a bit in the beginning, maybe. I will just somehow very quickly say that I put myself in the frontier, in the border. My books, novels, it's been 20 years, I'm writing them in French. All my books, all my novels, they're based in India. All my characters so far are from India, from Bengal, from Darjeeling, from North India, from Uttar Pradesh, sometimes from Russia, sometimes from Paris, sometimes from France. So this is really a cross-country thing is going on. And even though I write in French, I don't think at all they are French novels. Of course, they are not Bengali or Indian novels. It's somewhere in between. It's a metis. The other day I was saying that it's really a cross-breeded thing. It's at the border, at the frontier of the things. So I think this is cultural métissage, cultural mixed breeding, cultural cross-country thing is going on. I like it that way, not to define myself in a rigid kind of way. You know, it's going on. It's a Sartrean, Jean-Paul Sartrean concept, l'état naissant. I'm not finished yet. See, I'm too young. See, I'm not finished yet. I'm not a finished product yet. Maybe a few years later, I'll be staying in Russia. I'll feel myself Russian a little bit. So I love that country, love the literature, translated into Bengali. So yeah, I'm not finished. I'm not finished product. My books are not finished yet. It's still going on. Let's see what happens 10 years later. Yeah.
Wonderful. On that note, if there are any questions, do we have time for questions? 5 minutes? Do we have time for questions? Oh, we are over. Okay. Just take one question. Maybe one question over here. This gentleman.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you. Wonderful panel. I think, Shumona, your imagery and the analogies you've given is just next to nothing. I think that's amazing. Waheed sir, I must say, even the texture of your voice is so soothing. You should probably consider not just writing, but also speaking for a living, if I may. And Sir Mohan sir, I think the anecdotal wisdom that you have bestowed upon us so casually has not gone unnoticed, at least by me. And thank you for moderating it so well. Sure. My question. My question is it's a two-part question. The first is that a lot of times you will notice a word which doesn't translate too well in the other languages that you've written. How do you reconcile with that? If you're writing a story, when you realize, hey, this feeling was probably best interpreted or best shown in a word that I'm not currently using based on the virtue that the language that I've taken up. How do you reconcile with that? Or do you choose, or there is a different approach that you approach? And my second question was, should anybody choose to delve in a newer language? Like you said, if you are taking up a new language and you're learning your first foreign language, it's going to be the hardest. What is the most effective way you guys have found that helps us learn more languages the most efficient way? Why anybody? I think
very quickly I can say, because in the beginning when I was writing novels, I felt like I was doing cultural translation, because when I say bread, pain en français, the roti, chapati, there's so many rotis and chapatis, and ruti and roti is not same. So I was all the time thinking like I'm making some cultural translation, and what you said is very intelligent, very very correct comment. That I was, and I still, I think, do what I do. I go paraphrasing when I don't find the right word, So texts become longer in French in that sense, because I haven't found the right word from my cultural point of view from Bengal to French. I'm writing, but it's not perfect enough. It's not close enough. Let's just give you one word. I haven't still found the perfect translation in French. Is abhiman. Abhiman in Bengal, not in Hindi. Abhiman not. Not Samhiman, not Obhiman. It's like you love your lover, but you're still kind of not happy that he's not there, or not answering correctly, but you're not fighting with him, yes. Right? It's very sweet. Obhiman is so sweet. We don't have any word like that in French. It is so beautiful language, so we don't have any that word. I still haven't found a word for Obhiman. So that's kind of hankering. I think I have lots of hankering like that. So I go paraphrasing, I go for metaphors and images. That's it.
I completely agree. So my name is Cherish Santoshi, which itself is like English and Hindi, and I haven't found a word for cherish in like Hindi.
Anyone else wants to add to that question and answer to that question?
Okay, one of the questions was, what do you do to learn a language, right?
Yes.
There's a saying in my language in the Maldives which goes like this: if you want to swim, jump in. That's the dance.
On that note,
I'm sorry. Lose your fear and jump in. Yeah, that's it.
Lose your fear and jump in. Do we have time for one more question?
Yes. Thank you. All right. Okay.
Good evening, friends. I am from Kerala, and my name is Regila. I have two questions. One
Please tell
is
us who you direct your question to also.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One is to the writers panel. Do you make any sort of editing at any phase of your writing, hoping that your work could be translated in future? for the better ease of act in translation, do you do any sort of editing at any phase of your writing, hoping that your work could be translated in future? And another question is to Ms. Suchitra. What is your primary criteria for choosing work for translation?
I can answer that question privately because the panel is about them. I'm just moderating it. But the first question was, do you edit your work so that it would be easy to be translated at all?
No.
Jeyamohan sir could
No,
start.
I'm very selfish. I don't do that.
No from me as well.
No creative writer will do it, because creative writing is kind of dreaming on language. You cannot control your dream. If you are controlling your language or if you are controlling your dreams, it is not creative work. It's an articulated work. I won't do it.
Yeah.
Let me hit you hard on that one, okay? It's a bit like this.
Expecting something else.
Yeah, I'll shoot at you.
She was expecting something else.
And you'll forgive me if it kind of rubs you the wrong way. But
And
it's like this.
I'm against
Hang on.
any kind of editing, even
You know,
political editing also.
If you edit what you write, it's a bit like saying you're expecting a baby and then you say to yourself, this time I'm going to have a boy, this time I'm going to have a girl. No, you don't do that. You can't even do that.
Thank you so much. And okay, can we take questions? Because we can, I don't mind. Okay, go for it. Okay, one last question. The lady over there.
I loved how you were switching from English to French. And you, sir, I have no idea how you dream or what kind of thought process you might have, knowing that you know 12 languages. I know only 4 languages, and even then, when I'm thinking in Marathi, I'm like, okay, Hindi mein abhi main isko kaise bolu? So 4 language mein I'm so confused. I have no idea how you're dealing with that. And sir, I loved ki you chose a language. Like, you chose Tamil so that you would be able to maintain the rhythm. Had my parent been here beside me, he would have been very happy because he wants me to learn Sanskrit so that I can understand the music of classical language. So thank you, this was very enjoyable, and as a linguistic student, I loved it. We would like to have you in our college, please.
Thank you so much.
We'll
Is there a
come.
question?
Of
Is there a
course we'll
question?
come.
A question from here, from the first one. Please ask a question. Thank you.
Thank you. It is such an honor to hear the panelists. It was great. I'm a multilingual. My mother tongue, as you said, we can have 2 mother tongues, is Hindi and English. And then I switched to French. I did my master's in French. And now I try to speak as much as possible in French. My question to you is that when you're focusing on one language, does it happen that one language, that you are having trouble with, it's like almost that you are losing another language? Like, for example, if you're focusing in French, does it happen that your mother tongue, you're losing some of it?
Yeah, your question is a very relevant one in creative writing. Actually, if you are focusing on one language, naturally you are going to lose other languages. For the past 20 years, I am continuously losing my English because I am writing Mahabharata. But I am happy on it. I want to lose it completely. So, be on one language. That's the best way to write classics. Thank you.
You know, I'll completely disagree with you.
Yeah, I know.
And it's like this. One of my hobbies, I do this analogy thing. One of my hobbies is vintage motorbikes, right? So when I'm on my 1956 Honda CG125, I do not lose my Suzuki 1970s GN125. I don't lose it. It's there in my garage. So when I do the Suzuki, I do the Suzuki. When I do the Kawasaki, I do the Kawasaki. When I do the Honda, I do the Honda. And when I'm on my Bajaj Pulsar, I'm on my Bajaj Pulsar.
So I will give you the example of 2 writers. One is Nigerian writer, World Soyinka. He won Nobel Prize for Nigerian writing in English, and he abandoned English totally and began to write in his Nigerian language. So a lot of writers there. Another one is writer who lived in New York, and he wrote only in his Jewish language. Isaac Bashevis Singer. He got Nobel Prize for Yiddish writing, but he was living in New York, in the heart of New York. His works are being translated by other people into English. So immersing on a single language is a great thing, because the words in a single language is not just words, it's our images. That words can create more images in your mind. If you are shifting on various words for a single image, sometimes you lose the depth of that single image. Particularly languages like Sanskrit and Tamil has many layers. So you need a whole life to know a single language, a big language. That's the thing.
Thank you. Do you have something to add?
No, I'll say that you don't try to lose it, but eventually the language you are not writing in, they're like dormant. They're like rivers undercurrents. They're there, but they're just dormant. They're not dead. You don't forget them. They're there, but they're just dormant. So it's they're there. Just somehow maybe sprouting up sometimes vertically, and like a fountain of one day you see so many words in Bengali comes up and gushes. You don't know where from they're coming up, because the subconscious also language carries on, and that's an undercurrent of it. So you don't really try to lose it or want to lose it, but it's, as we all said the whole time, that it's a lifelong process. You don't really control everything about it, and you just go with the flow sometimes also.
Okay. Anything else? I think we've come to the end of our session. So thank you for the marvelous Jugalbandi. I think that was really what it was. Thank you.